Is Moses Itauma a great boxer? Now, what we do know is that Moses Itauma goes through the phases when he attacks. Let me explain. And we're going to make reference to the Dillian Whyte fight. So in phase 1, he does 3 jab feints from the southpaw position and then a straight left to the body. And then in phase 2, again a southpaw feint, draws out Dillian Whyte's jab, and then he does a counter jab from the southpaw position and then follows it with a straight left to the body. So the jab to the head is a deflection or sets up the straight left to the body. And then in phase 3, he does a 1, 2, 3 from the southpaw position. The 1 is the jab, the 2 is the straight left, and then the 3 is the right hook. And then finally we have phase 4, which is a double southpaw jab feint and an overhand left to the temple. And Dillian Whyte is in serious trouble. This is a sophisticated level of boxing. This is partly why many think Moses Itauma may be elite. Of course, time will tell. Because the theory is intelligent, but the execution is exemplary. This is boxing philosophy. And that leads to an interesting question. How good or how bad is Moses Itauma's chin? How good is it from 1 to 10, 1 to 100, etc.? But how good is Hrgovic's chin? Hrgovic, when he fought Daniel Dubois, he took some big shots. He took jabs, he took left hooks, he took overhand rights. He took some very heavy shots. And Daniel Dubois is a big puncher. He's the only man, for example, to stop Gerald Miller and the only man to stop Fabio Wardley. He punches very hard. Daniel Dubois has a vicious jab. I believe some people say it's like a Sonny Liston jab. And Hrgovic took those punches. And this is the important distinction. He was stopped, but he was stopped on his feet. That's a very important distinction. He took big punches from Zhang, who is a massive southpaw, who has very strong power. Look at the Joe Joyce boxing match for reference. So all the evidence indicates that when we talk about Filip Hrgovic and when we talk about chins from 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, if we're talking about 1 to 10, if it's not a 10 and it's at least a 9, it's very high. He's taken very hard punches from lots of different type of opponents. And just while we're on the topic, who has the best chins in boxing? You know, when I think of the best chins, I think of a variety of people. Marvelous Hagler. What an amazing chin he had. Check out the Thomas Hearns fight. Oliver McCall. Many people talk about Oliver McCall and how incredible his chin was. Triple G, unbelievable chin. James Toney, underrated because he was a defensive genius in the boxing ring. So he was good at slipping the punches and taking the power off the punches, but he also had a great chin. David Tua, again, another underestimated candidate. Of course, Muhammad Ali. He took 8 rounds of punishment from a prime George Foreman, which was absolutely unbelievable. George Foreman can really punch. Check out the Joe Frazier fight to validate that. Carl Froch, great British champion, great chin. Roberto Duran, another amazing fighter with an amazing chin. And also Canelo Alvarez. He has a great chin. I can't remember when Canelo has been hurt. His chin is that strong. And let's tie it back to Moses Itauma. How good is Moses Itauma's chin? Well, the truth is that we, the boxing public, we don't know how good his chin is. But hopefully, if the Hrgovic fight is competitive, we'll be able to get an answer to that question. So the next idea is that Hrgovic's entire case rests on one word: experience. 4 English fighters in a row. 4 English fighters in a row. Let's break it down. Joe Joyce. And that was like a last-minute replacement, I believe. Zhilei, Allen, and now Moses Itauma. He looked good against Dave Allen. He really went in there and just, really put the pressure on Dave Allen. And we all liked Dave Allen. We wanted him to win, but he did a job. The David Zhilei fight was an interesting fight. He got hit with some really strong counter jabs and counter left hooks, but he persevered and he dominated the fight with regards to winning the rounds. Here's an important question. How important is experience? How important is it? Now, when Sugar Ray Leonard beat Marvin Hagler, you could argue that his experience and ring IQ was significant. He had the movement, but also he had those last 30-second flurries that would steal the rounds. That was experience. And of course, Marvin Hagler had experience as well and was a great fighter. Both were experienced and great fighters, but Sugar Ray made, in that fight, better adjustments. And that was part of his experience and ring IQ. When we look at when Evander Holyfield fought Mike Tyson, that was an absolute masterclass. We had the dominant position against Mike Tyson, so taking a dominant position, we had elite counterpunching in that fight. Evander Holyfield's counterpunching was elite. Whether it was the right-hand counter, the left-hand counter, it was absolutely elite. You had the control in the pocket, so he controlled the action in the pocket, either when it was in the clinch or when they were fighting up close. And then you had the tempo control. Again, he would use the clinch to slow down the pace or use the jab to control the pace. So you had that experience and that ring IQ. So experience is important. And this is where Hrgovic has an advantage. But can he make that advantage count? Because there's the important relationship. It's whether the experience that you have translates into boxing IQ. And I guess only time will tell. Now let's objectively be clear here. Both Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have heart. Let's substantiate the point. Tyson Fury looked like he was knocked out unconscious against Deontay Wilder, but somehow got up in the first fight. That was Rocky Marciano level of courage. Incredible stuff. Also in the third fight with Deontay Wilder, he went down twice, he got back up, and he was victorious. So he's a warrior, no doubt about that. Anthony Joshua, he fought Ruiz, he got knocked down, he kept trying to come back. When Anthony Joshua fought Klitschko, he knocked Klitschko down in round 5. Klitschko knocked him down in round 6. Remember, Klitschko was a former dominant champion. He was, I wouldn't say dominating the fight, but he was starting to take charge of the fight, I believe, in round 10. And then Anthony Joshua rolled the dice. He was brave and he went for it. And in round 11, he got the stoppage. Both Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, they're both tough and they both have heart. And I believe they will both be bringing heart to when they fight. Clearly, Tyson Fury, by saying these things, is building the fight. Tyson Fury, let's not forget, is great at marketing. In the first Klitschko fight, that was sensational marketing. Go back to the Tyson Fury Klitschko build-up, and Tyson Fury really marketed that fight really well. And the Deontay Wilder fights, both Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder played pivotal roles in marketing those events. So Tyson Fury understands that big fights need big marketing. So this is just part of the marketing. Idea number 4. ESPN and outlets immediately frame this as Fury moving a step closer to a Joshua super fight. The win was secondary to the matchmaking story. And I guess we are constantly building the AJ Tyson Fury narrative. And this is a compelling story, a huge story. However, is this fight so big? Does it really need to be built any further? The narrative surely is secure. I mean, these two brands, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, these are huge brands. But each tune-up fight creates further suspense, creates further questions. So this is like the build-up before the build-up to when the fight is actually scheduled. And the 5th idea is in the fight, Tyson Fury was clearly elusive, and he's trying to, I believe, maybe redefine his identity. And this was an attempt, I believe, to go back to the Vladimir Klitschko performance. And what I mean by that is more movement and more feints. And this is kind of like the Tyson Fury that fought Deontay Wilder the first time. And you can kind of look at the different Tyson Furies through the Deontay Wilder trilogy. First fight, that's the Tyson Fury that's moving a lot, lots of foot movement, lots of head movement, lots of feints, and he's banking the rounds. In the second Deontay Wilder fight, Tyson Fury was taking a dominant position. He's using his jab to set up the backhand, and he's fighting in the pocket. This was a very dominant Tyson Fury. And then the third one was like a combination of both a little bit. He didn't take as much of a dominant position at the beginning of the fight, but as the fight went to the middle and to the end, he reasserted his dominance and he kind of dictated from the pocket. But it looks like Tyson Fury is trying to go back to the Tyson Fury that fought Klitschko and the one that fought Deontay Wilder the first time. We're getting the feints, we're getting the movement. So is Tyson Fury trying to recreate that identity? Now, Peter Fury, who was in the corner for the Vladimir Klitschko performance, he would be a great asset for Tyson Fury, but I don't believe that he's involved in the camp, which is a shame because, like I said, he would be a great asset. And Usyk, in his heart, in his spirit, he may not want to retire. He may feel in his heart that he can still operate at an elite level. And it's interesting because the mindset and the psychological strength of a person, it can empower you or it can blind you. And who is best suited to make the decision of when you should walk away? The natural reaction is to say the boxer would know, but is that true? Is it the boxer's trainer? Because in theory, he sees you every day. Is it the team? And even if you're in the gym and you're in preparation and things are not going well, I guess there's always this curiosity within the boxer. There's always this ego within the boxer, or there's this thing in the boxer that maybe they can recreate one magical night. It's just so, I guess the bottom line is that it's not easy to ascertain when to walk away. When you look at all the variables and you put all the variables on the table, it's really, really hard. Okay, so let's finish this with 7 questions. Question number 1. Has Usyk earned the right to continue, or was the second Dubois fight the perfect ending? For me, as an outsider looking in, 90,000 in front of Wembley, an absolutely spectacular performance, a performance that transcended his identity because it was a knockout as opposed to a decision win against a champion that was coming off a vicious, brutal victory over Anthony Joshua. To me, this would have been a perfect finish. However, the next best time to finish would be probably in his next fight. But that was a great, great moment. But Usyk may have other motivations in terms of fighting either at home or close to home. So from where we're standing now and looking at the Rico performance, that looked like the perfect time to end, but only time will tell. Question 2. Did the Rico fight expose physical decline, poor preparation, or simple disinterest? It may have been a combination of all those things. It's hard to talk about the physical decline because he still physically operated. And remember, he got the stoppage in the late rounds. So he still had that stamina. Was there poor preparation? It depends how we define poor preparation. Did he train hard? I think it's a byproduct of Usyk's personality to train hard, but perhaps there were distractions, perhaps there was politics, perhaps there may have been some minor injuries. There could have been a variety of things. So the poor preparation may not have been due to a lack of effort. And was he disinterested? It just, when he was in the pocket sometimes, he just looked like he just wasn't focused. Similar to AJ against Prenga. He just seemed to switch off. Maybe that was a psychological trick. I don't know. But there did seem to be some concerns there. Question number 3. Is Usyk still fighting for personal ambition or to give his people unforgettable nights? I think he's probably achieved everything personal. And I think a large part of his fuel, figuratively speaking, is the strength he gives his people. And I think he's so invested in that. I think he's so proud of that. And I think he's a man of integrity. That's how he comes across. So I think it's going to be hard for him to put that down. I know that his people look up to him and he probably feels a sense of obligation. Money is important until you've made so much money that it becomes not as important. So the cultural impact, or the impact, the worldwide impact, I think that means a lot to him. So question number 4, can even a cerebral fighter like Usyk become addicted to boxing as adrenaline and identity? So can a cerebral fighter like Usyk become addicted to boxing's adrenaline and identity? I think so. I think when you have that type of success, when you're figuratively on the top of the mountain and you're looking down and you're just thinking, wow, look what I've accomplished. When you earn that level of respect, there's not many people in the world that have earned the level of respect that Usyk has earned. Imagine that adrenaline rush. Imagine that dopamine effect. You might not be able to put that into words. So the expectation that just because you're a cerebral boxer, that you can just walk away, that to me doesn't make rational sense. Matter of fact, being a cerebral boxer might make you want it even more. So I don't think his boxing IQ will increase. I don't know, does his boxing IQ have any bearings on him walking away? I think, assuming he has a good team and he has good people around him, you would hope that there would be a calculation of when to leave. But like I said, you don't want to leave no great nights on the table. Context, their fathers, Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn, they were world champions and they were loved by the British public, absolutely adored by the British public. Nigel Benn was vicious, he was aggressive, and he punched very hard. He had really good head movement. Chris Eubank Sr. was a showman. He was a showman. And in this context, in the context between Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr., he was the boxer. The first fight was absolutely brutal. It was brutal. Nigel Benn hit Eubank with hard punches. But Eubank persevered, and eventually he got the stoppage. The rematch was much anticipated, but it was a more tactical affair. It was brutal, but it was more tactical, and it ended up being a controversial draw. I think a lot of people thought that Nigel Benn deserved the nod for that fight. The third and fourth fights was with the children many years later. And let's be honest, the first fight was absolutely incredible. It exceeded expectations. In a sense, the lead up to the fight was like a movie. It was absolutely like a movie. There were so many different chapters, so many different things happening. Chris Eubank Jr. was great in the build-up. And so the lead-up was elite. But then you're thinking, okay, the lead-up's going to be elite. What's the fight going to be like? But the fight exceeded expectations on every level. It really did. It was purposeful. It was brutal. And they both put up a great show, and they both were warriors. Both refused to quit. They put it all on the line. In a sense, they left their spirits in the ring that night. And us, the spectators, we saw something truly special. Something that was curated over 25 to 30 years. The rematch, unfortunately, was overshadowed by Chris Eubank Jr.'s decline. And that was very unfortunate. The next idea is that is the concept that Conor Benn says he couldn't pay me enough. It's just sore. Benn's refusal of a speaking tour with Eubank is the most revealing line. Now, their fathers eventually reconciled and did tours together, but their sons, it appears, won't. So their fathers eventually did tours together, but it looks like for the immediate future that the sons won't be doing any type of tours. And my understanding actually is that the fathers actually reignited their feud when Nigel Benn felt disrespected at a weigh-in. Maybe those feelings have changed, but the father's feud was very, very real. And the son's feud is an inherited beef. So think of this. The father's feud was real, based on not liking each other. But the son's feud has been inherited from the fathers. The truth, the objective truth, perhaps, is that they have helped each other make millions. And when I say they, Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr. made millions together. Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., they made millions together. The beef, how important is the beef? Well, the beef creates the marketing. The beef creates the spectacle. That's what people want to see. Now, that's not to say that the sons don't like each other, but there is a strong incentive to keep the animosity going, because the animosity is the marketing machine. Nigel Benn hated Chris Eubank. But then that change. People change. Feelings change. Perspective change. The sons, of course, are great at marketing. Chris Eubank Jr. he's a loquacious master. And in fairness, Conor Benn has improved his lyrical abilities. And like I said, they produced a spectacle in and out of the ring.